Hi, I'm Jim Norris of Norris & Company, a business-to-business advertising agency located here in Plymouth. I'm delighted today to join you on behalf of the Plymouth Area Chamber of Commerce and as part of their Takeaway Tuesday series. In this inaugural episode, we're going to discuss website engagement and ultimately conversion. Our goal today is to give you a better understanding of the concepts and hopefully provide a few easy-to-implement suggestions that will help you improve your website and make it a more effective tool for gathering valuable information about visitors and allowing you to turn them into actionable prospects. Engagement is a fairly broad term. For our purposes today, let's define it as the interaction between users and your website. At its most basic, engagement has to do with how a user feels when they visit your site. Is it a positive or a negative experience? And this is an important question because for most people, their initial contact with any business is through the company's website, and first impressions do matter. So obviously, we want the user experience to be positive, and ideally, we'd like it to lead to some next step or conversion. And whatever that next step is, that allows us to get a web visitor into and ultimately through our sales funnel. So what can you do to ensure visitor engagement is positive? First, let me hedge my bets a bit. I've been counseling businesses for over 30 years, and if I've learned anything at all, it's that there's no such thing as a universal solution. Every business, even those in the same industry that sell the same type of products, is different. They have different cultures, different financial and human resources, and different management styles. And because of this, I'm pretty cautious about making sweeping generalities without having done my due diligence. That said, here are a few ideas. First, make sure your website looks good. I know that sounds obvious, but think about it for a second. How often do you actually visit your own website? If you're like most small businesses, you built your site, you made sure it worked, and then you moved on to the next thing. It's what we all do. We all move on to the next thing. We need to in order to stay alive. But take a moment, step back, and visit your site like it was the first time you've ever seen it. Make a few notes about what you think looks good and what doesn't look so good. Try to find one or two little things that you think will make it better. Are the photos on the homepage old? Are the clothes or hairstyles seriously dated? Do you have pictures of workstations with computers that your kids wouldn't recognize as computers? Are product shots in black and white, not for creative reasons, but because that's all you had at the time you built the site? If so, go in and change some pictures. It shouldn't be too difficult to do. You don't need to be a web developer, and you certainly don't have to be a professional photographer. In most cases, smartphone pictures are perfectly suitable for web use. Or find a stock photo website and search for what you're looking for. I promise you'll find it. And in most cases, you can download an image for web use for under $20. Next, check to make sure the content is current. A friend of mine recently had a remote car starter installed. When she went to pay, the price was higher than the holiday special listed on the website. The shop owner did the right thing and gave her the discount, but confessed that he put that special up in 2018 and forgot it was even there until she reminded him about it. Remember what I just said about all of us moving on to the next thing? He did it too. There are lots of other things you can do too. So review your site carefully. Make a list of what you'd like to change. Break it down into things you can do yourself and things that require outside help. Do the things you can, and then create a plan to get help with the others over some period of time. And don't worry about getting it all done right away. It's a process. In fact, none of us really ever get it all done. Now, many of you have websites that already check all the boxes for aesthetics, organization, and content. That's great. Now we can get to the next topic, which we call conversion. You know, I get asked this question 3 or 4 times a year. Is there any way to know who's visiting my website? My answer is always the same. As a practical matter, no. The key word there is practical. Sure, for big companies, household names we all recognize, there are tools and technologies available. But the technological resources and expense required to implement them is prohibitive. At least that's certainly the case for the types of clients Norris & Company serves. The fact is, for most of us, web visitors are anonymous, and that can be frustrating. especially for many of my clients who sell through some sort of field sales organization. These people crave leads, but because we can't identify website visitors on our own, we have to get them to do it for us. We have to get them to identify themselves. It's sort of like getting them to raise their hand. They have to tell us who they are, and then when they do, we can begin the process of nurturing, educating, and ultimately selling them something. So that's what we're talking about when we say conversion, turning an anonymous visitor into a real person with a name and some method of contact. Now, there's no single way to do this. Instead, we think your website should offer multiple avenues for visitors to self-convert. The first way is rather low tech. It's all about your phone number. You know, I love phone calls from prospects. They're immediate, they're interactive, they allow me to qualify the caller as a prospect and rate them, and I can start building a personal relationship immediately. Now, if you want more calls from prospects, and seriously, who wouldn't, make it easy for them to call you. To get the phone ringing, make sure your telephone number is very conspicuous on your website. Put it in the footer of every page. Put it in the header of every page. Better yet, put it both places. Don't ever assume that everyone will know where to look for it. Instead, make sure that wherever they look, they'll find it. I don't know about you, but nothing frustrates me more than being on a business's website and wanting some sort of additional information. The kind that comes from speaking to a salesperson or application specialist, and then not being able to find the phone number. It drives me crazy, and it's not always for my lack of trying. Some companies prefer to communicate with you digitally because it's more convenient for them. I don't get that. Forcing a potential customer to communicate with you via your desired method and not theirs is just bad business. If someone wants to call you, let them, or risk them moving on to the next company's website. I'm not going to be so trite as to say the customer is always right, but... Now let's talk about email for a moment. Email is a terrific way for visitors to your website to communicate with you, and in so doing, identify themselves as contacts. If your site doesn't use web forms now, you should consider it, because they make life much easier for your visitors. And just like your phone number, web inquiry forms should be available in multiple locations on your site. For instance, any page that has product-specific information or budget pricing or any other type of offer. You'll be surprised at how this little adjustment leads to increased form submissions or conversions. A long-term client of ours manufactures scissor lift tables and a variety of other material handling equipment, something like 25 distinct products, each of which with its own page on their website. A couple years back, in an effort to provide more leads to the field sales group, we decided to see what would happen if we added a simple contact form to each product page. Just a little box below the product features that said, "Need more info?" Now, before we did this, the website averaged about 4 to 5 email inquiries per week. Almost immediately after adding the forms, that number jumped to 4 to 5 per day. Now, I'm not going to promise you a 500% increase, but I'm confident that if you do this, you will see an increase in form submissions. Earlier I said that phone calls had an immediacy that emails lacked. Another method of conversion that sort of falls in between the two is chat. Chat offers users two things. First is the opportunity for an immediate response. Second, it provides them with the engagement benefits of a two-way conversation. It's almost everything you get from a phone call, but for many it's less threatening and more comfortable. And as younger people enter the workforce, it's second nature to them. Now, implementing chat on your site is fairly easy. There are dozens of off-the-shelf third-party chat tools out there. If you only need a few chat operators, the cost is very manageable. There are even some free single-user platforms out there, and most all offer some sort of free trial period. If you'd like to know more, just Google best chat software, and you'll find all sorts of lists with detailed comparisons of features and costs. But just because chat is easy to set up and inexpensive doesn't mean it's for everyone. The biggest hurdle in a chat program is the human resource requirements needed to monitor and respond to chat visitors. If you're a small business and there are large parts of your day that you're away from your computer, maybe you run a muffler shop, you're an arborist, you do car detailing, chat probably is not the best option for you. The same holds true if you're a consultant or advisor and you spend most of your day on conference calls or in Zoom meetings. The fact is, chat users expect an immediate response. If you don't answer the chat and it times out, that creates a negative user experience and again could lead to the visitor moving on to the next company's website. The final conversion method I'd like to discuss today is getting people to identify themselves by offering them something of value, a quid pro quo, if you will. Now, this could be any number of things. Win free cupcakes for a year. Get valuable coupons delivered to your inbox every week. Or download our white paper on how to train your goldfish. We often call this practice gating, or content gating. Because you're offering something of value, many people will be willing to share a little info about themselves to get it. And it's a great way to add to your contact database. But be careful here. Don't get greedy. Don't try to gate content that doesn't really add any value. Also, don't get too greedy about the information you require or even ask for. For many of us, a first name and an email address may be all we really need. For others, like companies with geographic sales territories or distribution partnerships, a little more information, like maybe state or zip code, might be necessary. But again, resist the urge to ask for too much, especially if the info doesn't do anything to facilitate the sales process. Remember, the less information you ask for, the more likely people are to give it. So, to wrap up, here are 4 takeaways that will help you convert anonymous visitors into personally identified contacts. First, make your phone number easy to find. It should be fairly simple to do for most of you, and even if you do need help from a developer, it shouldn't be that expensive. Second, make email forms more accessible. Asking a user to click over to a dedicated contact page doesn't seem like a big deal, but it is. Give users the ability to submit a contact form directly from whatever page they are looking at. Third, consider the value of chat. No, it's not for everyone, but for a lot of companies, it's proving to be a useful tool for solving customer problems quickly and at the same time generating high volumes of contact names. Finally, offer something of value in return for a visitor's contact information. If you do any or all of these things, there's a good chance you'll be on your way to building a solid contact database. Then I guess the next logical question is how best to use that database. Maybe we'll save that for a future episode. In the meantime, I'd like to thank the Plymouth Area Chamber of Commerce for allowing me to share some thoughts with you today, and I'd like to thank you for joining me. Until next time, I'm Jim Norris.